So, I want you to picture something for a second. It's 1936, right?
Right. Absolute depths of the Great Depression.
Exactly. Bread lines everywhere, sheer desperation. And out of nowhere, this former struggling salesman from Missouri publishes a book about human behavior.
Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie. And I mean, if you think about that era, people were just focused on survival. But you fast forward to today, right now, if you walk into the boardrooms of, Silicon Valley tech giants.
The people literally building artificial intelligence.
Yes. The people defining our digital future. You are going to find those billionaire founders using his exact, almost century-old psychological framework to manage their entire empires.
It's wild when you really step back and look at it.
It is, because, the world has completely transformed. Our technology is unrecognizable from 1936, yet this manual remains the ultimate cheat code for human interaction. And, it begs the question, why?
Well, because while our smartphones have evolved, our neurological craving for one specific, deeply human emotion just hasn't changed. Not in 100,000 years.
And that's what we're getting into today. Because it's kind of the ultimate paradox of the modern age, isn't it?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
We are surrounded by tools that are explicitly designed to connect us, right? But we are experiencing this massive epidemic of isolation.
Yeah, everyone's connected, but nobody actually feels seen.
Exactly. And the source material we're diving into today, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it survives because it just entirely strips away all that technological noise.
Yeah.
It ignores the medium and focuses entirely on the biological and psychological realities of, how human beings process information.
How they perceive threats, who they trust.
Right. And ultimately, trust is the currency of everything we do.
Which is why we're dedicating this whole deep dive to unpacking this. Because frankly, if you look at the data, and it's blew my mind when I first read it, your technical knowledge, so your degrees, your coding skills, your financial acumen, whatever it is.
Your hard skills.
Yeah, your hard skills. They account for roughly 15% of your actual financial and professional success. 15%.
Which is a terrifying ratio if you've spent your entire life just optimizing for those hard skills.
Seriously. You spend 4 years in college, maybe get a master's, and that's only 15% of the puzzle. So what's the other 85%?
It's entirely dependent on your human engineering.
Human engineering. I love that phrase.
Yeah, it's your ability to navigate the really complex, often totally irrational landscape of other people's egos.
But, while it's scary, it's also incredibly empowering once you realize that this human engineering thing, it isn't some mystical aura that you're just born with.
No, not at all. It's a completely learnable framework.
Right. And I like to think of this framework like a fundamental operating system update for your brain. Because if you think about it, we spend so much time trying to upgrade the individual apps in our lives, right?
Oh, for sure. Like taking a seminar for your career app.
Exactly. Or we read a book to improve the marriage app, or we go to therapy for the friendship app. But if your core operating system, like the way you fundamentally approach human interaction, if that's riddled with bugs, all those apps are just going to keep crashing.
They'll crash every time.
So this deep dive, for everyone listening, this is about rewriting that foundational code.
And to rewrite that code, we really have to start at the absolute bedrock of human psychology. Before we can even talk about the external mechanics of, how to talk to someone or how to persuade them, we have to understand the invisible engine driving their behavior.
The invisible engine. Tell me about that.
So every single person you interact with today, right, from the barista making your morning coffee to the CEO signing your paycheck, they're all walking around with an invisible sign flashing around their neck.
Okay.
And that sign reads, "Make me feel important."
Make me feel important. It sounds almost too simple on the surface, doesn't it?
It does, but when you really observe people, truly watch them, you see it driving literally everything.
Yeah, I guess it drives the clothes we buy, the careers we choose.
The things we post on social media. It is the core driver of the human condition. In fact, William James, who was one of the founders of modern psychology, he noted that the deepest craving in human nature is the craving to be appreciated.
Notice he didn't say a wish or a desire.
Right, a craving. He used that specific word. It is as physiological as hunger. When someone feels insignificant, their brain actually interprets that as a threat to their social survival.
Wow. So it's not just ego, it's biology.
It's pure biology. When you validate their importance, you are literally giving their nervous system a signal of safety and belonging.
But that requires a radical honestly an almost uncomfortable shift in how most of us operate day to day. I know for myself, my default setting when I walk into a high-stakes room, it's completely ego-driven.
Oh, totally. Mine too.
Right. My internal monologue is shouting, how do I make these people think I'm smart? Like, how do I prove I belong here? What clever thing can I say next? I'm entirely focused on my own invisible sign.
And that is the default biological setting for almost everyone. We are wired for self-preservation. But this framework, it demands that we flip that script.
We have to flip it.
Yeah. Instead of projecting your own need for importance outward, you have to absorb and validate the importance of the person sitting across from you. You have to move from ego to empathy.
So the secret isn't figuring out how to get others to like you.
No, it's figuring out how to make others feel liked, understood, and admired by you.
Okay, but let me push back on this a little bit because I can hear the cynical listener out there rolling their eyes right now.
Go for it.
If I spend my entire day, just validating everyone else's ego, walking around trying to make my boss, my coworkers, my neighbors feel important, doesn't that just make me a massive doormat? I mean, aren't I just sacrificing my own boundaries to stroke someone else's vanity?
Yeah, that is the single most common pitfall people face when encountering this material. They confuse empathy with submission.
You have mission right.
But empathy is not about making yourself small so that someone else can feel big. It's about emotional intelligence. When you drop that desperate need to dominate a conversation, you aren't surrendering. You're actually gathering data.
Oh, that's a great way to put it, gathering data.
Exactly. The person who listens, who asks questions, who uncovers the real motivations of the people around them, that person holds all the strategic cards. You aren't being a doormat. You're just stepping out of the mud pit of ego battles entirely.
Yeah, it's the difference between being reactive and being strategic. You aren't giving up power. You're utilizing a deeper kind of leverage.
Let's look at the historical data in the sources regarding Charles Schwab to prove this.
Oh, the steel magnate.
Yes. So in the early 20th century, he became one of the first people in the world to earn $1 million salary. And this was running the United States Steel Company.
$1 million back then is wild.
It was unprecedented. And if you look at the context of the 1920s steel industry, I mean, it was brutal.
Yeah, sweatshops, dangerous conditions.
Exactly. Management was dictatorial. Men were treated like disposable cogs in a machine. But here's the thing. Schwab didn't actually know more about the chemistry of steel manufacturing than the engineers working under him.
Right. He wasn't out there smelting iron better than anyone else.
Far from it. His singular genius was his understanding of that invisible sign we just talked about. He operated on this strict philosophy of praising more than he criticized.
Which, in the 1920s steel industry, must have looked insane to other bosses.
Totally alien. In a time when factory bosses motivated through fear and yelling, Schwab motivated through profound recognition. He actually walked the factory floors. He knew the names of the line workers.
Wow.
He made the people doing the grueling, dangerous work feel like the most critical component of the entire empire. And because they felt valued, their productivity, their loyalty, their innovation, it all skyrocketed.
So Schwab didn't submit to his workers. He elevated them. And in doing so, they literally built his empire for him.
Exactly. So if we accept that this fundamental human drive is this craving for importance, it stands to reason that the most destructive thing you can do to another human being is to attack that sense of importance.
Right. Which brings us to the bedrock rule of human interaction, the foundation of everything we're talking about today. You have to completely abandon criticism, condemnation, and complaining.
Yeah, and from a neurobiological standpoint, criticism is just incredibly inefficient.
And efficient how?
Well, when you criticize someone, even if you are factually completely correct, you trigger an amygdala hijack in their brain.
The amygdala, right? The lizard brain.
Yep, the ancient part of our brain responsible for the fight or flight response. When a person hears, you did this wrong, their brain literally perceives a threat to their status and survival. The amygdala flares up, and it essentially short-circuits the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the logical reasoning part of the brain.
Exactly.
So wait, the moment I tell my coworker, like, hey, your presentation was a mess, they literally lose the biological capacity to process the logic of my feedback just because they are too busy defending themselves from what they see as a predator.
That is exactly what happens. They cannot hear your message, they only feel your attack, and they instantly start building a defensive narrative to justify their actions. The sources point to this brilliant historical case study here with Abraham Lincoln during the American Civil War.
Oh, the Gettysburg story. I love this one. Because, we always mythologize Lincoln as this stoic, flawless communicator. But he actually had to learn this neurological reality the hard way. Set the scene for us.
Okay, so it's the summer of 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg has literally just ended. General Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army is in retreat, and they are trapped against a flooded Potomac River.
Like trapped. Nowhere to go.
Exactly. Lincoln sees this as the perfect, divine opportunity to capture Lee and end the Civil War instantly. So he sends direct, frantic orders to his Union commander, General George Meade. He tells him, attack immediately. Do not even call a council of war.
Because the fate of the nation is literally hanging in the balance. The war could end that afternoon.
That very day. But Meade hesitates. He calls a council of war anyway against direct orders. He delays. And while he delays, the river recedes, and Lee's army escapes.
Oh, man. I can't even imagine Lincoln's reaction.
Lincoln was historically famously furious. I mean, he sat down and wrote General Meade this scathing, deeply critical letter. He told Meade that the magnitude of his failure was immeasurable, that his hesitation prolonged the bloodshed, and that Lincoln was profoundly distressed by his incompetence.
Which, let's be honest, is a completely justified critique. Meade objectively failed his mission.
Factually, Lincoln was 100% correct.
Right.
But Lincoln never sent the letter.
He never sent it.
No. It was found among his papers after his assassination, and you have to ask, why didn't he send it?
Because he realized it wouldn't actually fix anything.
Exactly. Lincoln, through years of bitter political experience, realized the futility of criticism. He paused and he thought, if I send this, it will relieve my own feelings, sure, but it will make me justify himself. It will make him condemn me.
He knew it would just arouse hard feeling.
Right. He realized it would impair Meade's further usefulness as a commander and perhaps even force him to resign from the army. Lincoln realized that criticism, even when it is totally accurate, only destroys. It never builds.
I used to think about this, like trying to train a puppy. Like if a dog chews your shoe and you just scream at it, the dog doesn't suddenly understand the complex economic value of footwear.
No, it definitely doesn't.
Right. It just learns to be terrified of you. But really, it's deeper than that. It's behavioral conditioning. Yelling teaches fear, and fear shuts down the learning centers of the brain entirely.
It creates a permanent psychological barrier. I mean, think about the workplace. If a manager scolds an employee publicly, that employee doesn't walk away thinking, wow, I really need to improve my attention to detail.
No, they think, my manager is a tyrant and I need to start updating my resume tonight.
Exactly.
So, okay, if we eliminate criticism because it triggers the amygdala and we stop complaining because it just drains the energy of the room, what is the alternative? Like, how do we actually course-correct behavior if we can't criticize?
You replace the threat with a reward. You give honest, sincere appreciation. And we really have to draw a massive neon line here between appreciation and flattery.
Oh, definitely. Flattery is the absolute worst. People have highly tuned radar for it.
They really do.
It just feels transactional. It feels like, you're being buttered up before a slaughter.
That's a great way to put it. Flattery comes from the teeth out. It is selfish. It's all about what you want to extract from the other person. Appreciation, on the other hand, comes from the heart out. It requires you to actually pay attention to the other person, observe something specific of value, and acknowledge it without wanting anything in return.
It's the specificity that makes it real, I think. Saying, great job today, team, as you walk out the door on a Friday, that's just noise.
Pure noise.
But pulling someone aside and saying, hey, the way you handled that aggressive client on the phone at 2 p.m., you kept your cool, you de-escalated their anger, and you saved that account, that was masterful. That specific recognition floods their brain with dopamine.
Yes. And dopamine is the chemical driver of intrinsic motivation.
Huh?
When you specifically appreciate someone like that, their brain connects that behavior to a chemical reward. They will naturally want to repeat the behavior, not out of fear of punishment, but out of a desire for continued validation.
But this requires us to fundamentally change our orientation to the world. Because we spend our days just scanning our environments for errors, don't we?
Oh, constantly.
We look for the typo in the email, the smudge on the glass, the delay in the commute. We are professional fault finders.
And to master this framework, you have to become a professional value finder. You have to actively hunt for things to appreciate in the people around you, which transitions perfectly into the third principle, which is probably the hardest but most vital of this foundational framework.
What's that?
You must arouse in the other person an eager want.
An eager want. Okay, this one requires some serious mental gymnastics for me because everything in my biology tells me to focus on what I want.
Of course it does. But the brutal truth of human interaction is that nobody else cares about what you want. They care immensely, constantly, and exclusively about what they want.
Right.
So if you are trying to persuade someone, whether it's selling a product, pitching an idea to your boss, or even just getting your kid to clean their room, if you frame it entirely around your own desires, you will fail.
The sources recount this story about Frank Betker, right? The insurance salesman.
Yes, spectacularly unsuccessful life insurance salesman in the 1920s.
Yeah, he was wearing out his shoes walking door to door, just trying to sell policies because he desperately needed the commission to pay his rent.
He was projecting his own eager want, his need for survival, onto his clients.
And what happened? They slammed the door in his face.
Over and over again. Because his survival wasn't their problem. Bedger only found massive success when he underwent a massive cognitive shift. He stopped thinking about his commission, and he started developing cognitive empathy. He began asking his prospects what kept them up at night.
And what did you find out?
He discovered that their eager want was the security of their children, the fear of leaving their widows destitute if something happened to them.
So Becker stopped selling a piece of paper with an actuarial table on it. He stopped selling what he wanted to sell, and he started selling peace of mind. He aligned his product with their deepest internal desire.
That is the absolute essence of influence. You have to bait the hook to suit the fish. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't go fishing with a strawberry just because you like strawberries, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You use a worm because that is what the fish wants.
Exactly.
I see this constantly in modern sales, especially in tech. A salesperson will spend 20 minutes listing the technical specifications of a software platform. Oh, we have a neural net algorithm and a cloud-based infrastructure with military-grade encryption.
And the client is just totally glazing over.
Completely. Because the salesperson is talking about the product because they are proud of the product, but the client is sitting there thinking, I just want to go home at 5 p.m. without my database crashing.
Yes.
The great salesperson listens for that pain point, and they say, this software means you never have to work a weekend fixing a server again.
They map the features to the client's internal reality. And if we synthesize this whole foundation, eliminating criticism to avoid the amygdala hijack, offering sincere appreciation to trigger dopamine, and mapping your requests to their internal desires, we establish a baseline where people actually feel safe around you.
Right. We've stopped accidentally triggering their defense mechanisms. But safety is really just the baseline, isn't it? It's neutral territory. How do we move from neutral to magnetic? Like, how do we actively draw people in and make them genuinely enjoy our presence?
Well, the psychology of magnetism isn't about being the loudest, funniest, or most charismatic person in the room. In fact, it is often the exact opposite. True magnetism stems from the application of pure, unadulterated curiosity.
Curiosity.
Yeah. The first habit to cultivate is becoming genuinely interested in other people.
The sources share this brilliant anecdote about a dinner party that I think perfectly illustrates this. So a man attends this fancy gathering and ends up sitting next to a botanist. And the man knows absolutely nothing about botany.
Nothing at all.
But he doesn't share a single story about his own life, his job, or his travels. He simply spends hours asking the botanist fascinated questions about exotic plants and indoor gardens. And at the end of the night, the botanist tells the host that this quiet man was the most stimulating, interesting conversationalist he had ever met.
It perfectly illustrates a cognitive blind spot we all have. We think we need to be fascinating to be liked. We don't. We just need to be fascinated.
It's fascinating. I love that.
When you listen to someone with rapt attention, you are giving them the rarest commodity in the modern world. Your undivided focus.
We are so starved for attention that when someone actually gives it to us, it feels like a superpower. And I think the physical manifestation of that approachability is the second habit we need to talk about.
Yeah.
A genuine smile. Now, we aren't talking about a plastered fake customer service grin, right?
No. We are talking about the evolutionary biology of a smile.
Yeah.
Humans possess mirror neurons. These are brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that same action.
So it's literally a mirrored reaction.
Exactly. When you approach someone with a sincere, warm smile, their mirror neurons fire, and their brain literally simulates the feeling of happiness and safety. A genuine smile is an ancient, evolutionary signal that says, I come in peace, I am not a threat, I am glad you are here.
It changes the literal temperature of an interaction.
It really does.
But if you combine that physical signal with the third habit, which might be the most daunting for many of us, and that is remembering and using people's names.
Oh, yes.
The sources declare that a person's name is the sweetest and most important sound in any language.
And to understand why a name is so powerful, we have to look at the reticular activating system in the brain.
The RAS.
Yes. This is a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information so we don't get overwhelmed. It's why you can tune out the hum of an air conditioner. But your name is permanently programmed into that system as high-priority data.
It's why you can be in a loud, crowded room completely ignoring the chatter, but if someone 20 feet away quietly says your name, you instantly snap to attention.
Your brain is wired to prioritize your own identity.
That makes so much sense.
Precisely. A name isn't just a label. It is the encapsulation of a person's history, their lineage, and their ego. When you make the effort to remember a name, especially when they don't expect you to, like the security guard at a building you visit once a month, or the person who poured your coffee, you are subverting their expectation of being invisible.
I have to confess, I am historically terrible at this.
It's common.
I meet someone, I shake their hand, they say their name, and 3 seconds later, it is completely wiped from my hard drive because I was too busy worrying about what I was going to say next. It brings a lot of shame, honestly, to have to ask again.
Which proves the point, doesn't it? Forgetting a name signals that you weren't truly present. To overcome this, you have to build structural habits. When you hear the name, repeat it immediately in your reply. It's great to meet you, David. Ask him how to spell it if it's unusual. Anchor it to a visual image in your mind.
So it takes actual cognitive effort.
Yes, and the cognitive effort you expend to remember their name translates directly into emotional currency with that person.
And once you know their name, the fourth habit comes into play, encouraging them to talk about themselves by being an active listener. And man, this is where most conversations go completely off the rails.
Because most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply.
The Me Too reflex. It is the bane of human connection.
Oh, it really is.
Like someone says, I had such a frustrating morning and my car broke down. And instead of saying, oh no, what happened? Are you okay? The other person instantly jumps in with, you think that's bad. Last week my transmission exploded and it cost me $2,000.
You have completely hijacked their narrative. You stole the spotlight to feed your own ego. Active listening requires suppressing that reflex.
How do we do that practically?
It requires utilizing prompts. Tell me more about how that impacted you. What was the hardest part of that for you? When you allow someone to fully empty their emotional bucket, without interrupting or making it about yourself, you build an unbreakable bond of trust.
Which flows right into the fifth habit, talking in terms of the other person's interests. There is a story in the sources about a man trying to secure a meeting with a famously busy, aloof executive. He had sent proposals, made calls, and just hit a brick wall for months.
Because he was leading with his own interests, his business proposal. But he finally did some reconnaissance. He discovered that this executive was fiercely passionate about a very niche hobby, collecting rare stamps.
Stamps. So the next time the man reached out, he didn't attach a spreadsheet. He sent a brief note mentioning that he had acquired a unique stamp and wanted the executive's expert opinion on it.
And what happened? The executive's door swung wide open. He enthusiastically took the meeting. They spent an hour talking about stamps before the executive, entirely on his own accord, pivoted the conversation to the business proposal and agreed to the deal.
That's incredible. By validating the executive's personal interest, the man bypassed all the corporate defenses.
It requires you to step into their world, rather than forcing them to step into yours. If you deploy all of these, the genuine interest, the smile, the name, the active listening, focusing on their passions, you naturally accomplish the sixth and final habit of magnetism. You make them feel important, and you do it sincerely.
You have fulfilled the demand of the invisible sign on their chest. You have become someone who provides psychological safety and validation.
Exactly.
But let's introduce some friction here, because making people feel good when everything is going well is one thing. But life is full of conflict. We negotiate, we debate, we disagree.
We do.
So how do you persuade someone who is fundamentally opposed to your viewpoint? How do you change a mind without burning the bridge you just spent all this time building?
This is where we transition into the mechanics of gentle persuasion. And first, we have to discard the traditional metaphor of persuasion entirely. Most of us view an argument like a game of tug-of-war.
Right. I pull, you pull.
Exactly. We grab our end of the rope, our facts, our logic, our data, and the other person grabs their end. We think if we just pull hard enough, if we introduce enough undeniable evidence, we will drag them across the line and win.
But in reality, when you pull harder on a rope, the other person's natural reflex is to dig their heels into the mud and pull back even harder.
It creates an equal and opposite reaction. It entrenches them in their current belief. We have to replace the tug-of-war metaphor with the concept of Aikido, the Japanese martial art.
Aikido.
In Aikido, you don't meet force with force. You blend with your opponent's momentum. You guide their energy to neutralize the conflict without destroying the person. The principles of persuasion in this framework are verbal Aikido.
Okay, so what's the first move in this verbal Aikido?
Radical de-escalation. The rule is, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it entirely.
Avoid it entirely. That's tough for a lot of people.
It is. But an argument is a lose-lose scenario. Even if you dismantle their logic flawlessly, even if you prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are factually incorrect, you have destroyed their pride. You have humiliated them.
And people don't forgive that.
Never. A person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. They will resent you for the embarrassment, and they will never ally with you.
This means we have to completely eliminate a phrase from our vocabulary. You can never, ever say to someone, "You're wrong."
Uttering the words "you're wrong" is a direct frontal assault on their intelligence, their judgment, and their self-respect. It immediately triggers cognitive dissonance.
How so?
Their brain cannot reconcile the idea that they are a smart, capable person with your assertion that they are foolish and incorrect. So, to resolve the dissonance, their brain decides that you are the enemy.
I see this constantly in political debates or online arguments. Someone posts an article, someone else replies with, "You're completely wrong. Here are 3 peer-reviewed studies proving it." And, I mean, has that ever, in the history of the internet, resulted in the first person saying, "Wow, thank you for correcting my flawed worldview"?
Literally never.
No, they just attack the source of the studies or they attack your grammar.
You cannot logic someone out of a position they didn't logic themselves into. Instead of saying "you're wrong," you use the Aikido move. You show respect for their opinion. You say, "I see why you would view it that way. I might have looked at it differently. Let's examine the facts together." You sit on the same side of the table and make the problem the enemy, rather than making the person the enemy.
And if the roles are reversed and you are the one who is wrong?
You must admit it quickly and emphatically.
This is so disarming. Like, if a client is furious because I messed up a shipment, their adrenaline is pumping. They're gearing up for a massive fight. They expect me to make excuses, to blame the postal service, to dodge accountability.
They want the tug of war.
Right. If I just look them and say, "You are completely right. I dropped the ball. It is entirely my fault. There is no excuse, and here is how I am going to fix it." It's like letting the air out of a balloon.
It completely deprives them of the fight they were anticipating. By taking all the blame upon yourself, you force them into a position of magnanimity. Often, they will actually start defending you. "Well, it's not entirely your fault. I know the supply chain is a mess right now." Profound humility is the ultimate de-escalator.
That's amazing. So once the tension is drained, we move to the momentum phase. You begin in a friendly way, obviously, but then you deploy the specific psychological technique. You get the other person saying yes, yes immediately.
This is the Socratic method in action. When a person says no, their entire neuromuscular system gathers itself into a state of rejection. They're physically guarded. But when a person says yes, their system opens up.
So you don't start the conversation by bringing up the main point of contention. You start by finding the shared reality.
You ask questions that yield affirmative answers. If you are negotiating a tense contract, you don't start with the pricing dispute. You start by saying, "We both agree that the timeline on this project is the most critical factor." Correct. Yes. And we both want to ensure the final product meets the highest quality standards. Right. Yes.
You establish a pattern of agreement.
You build a psychological habit of saying yes so that when you finally introduce the difficult topic, they are already moving in a cooperative direction.
It's guiding their momentum. And part of that guidance is empowering them. You have to let them do a great deal of the talking. You let them feel that the idea is theirs.
People will fiercely defend an idea that they believe they originated, but they will inherently resist an idea that is forced down their throat by a superior. If you want someone to adopt a new workflow, don't hand them a manual and say, "Do this." Present the problem to them, ask for their insights, and guide their thought process so they naturally arrive at the workflow you wanted all along.
They become the architect of their own change. But this requires deep empathy. You have to honestly try to see things from their point of view. You have to validate their emotions.
And validation is not agreement. This is a critical distinction that people miss.
Right. Unpack that for me.
You can validate someone's anger without agreeing with their premise. You could say, "If I were in your shoes, with the information you have, I would feel exactly as angry as you do right now."
Wow. That phrase is pure magic. It acknowledges their humanity without conceding your position. It leads beautifully into my favorite principle in the entire persuasion framework, appealing to their nobler motives.
Most people, deep down, view themselves as inherently good, fair, and honorable. If you appeal to that self-image, they will stretch themselves to meet it.
Give me an example of that.
Say a tenant is trying to break a lease unfairly. You don't threaten to sue them. You say, I've always known you to be a person of your word, someone who honors their commitments. I trust you will do the fair thing here.
You give them a pedestal, and nobody wants to jump off a pedestal.
Exactly. Finally, when you need action, you have to dramatize your ideas. The human brain doesn't remember spreadsheets, it remembers stories, it remembers vivid imagery. And if all else fails, you throw down a challenge. You appeal to their pride, their desire to excel, their competitive spirit.
When you look at all these mechanics of persuasion de-escalation, the Socratic yes, empathy, nobler motives, it becomes clear that this isn't about winning an argument at all. It's about collaboratively uncovering a solution where both parties preserve their dignity.
Which is the core of it all, preserving dignity.
And that transition from one-on-one persuasion to broader leadership is seamless. If persuasion is guiding one person's momentum, leadership is choreographing the momentum of an entire group. How do we take these intensely interpersonal rules and scale them up to manage a corporate team, or parent a household, or run a community organization?
The emotional logic of leadership in this framework is exactly the same. You must lead without generating resentment. Resentment is the silent killer of organizations. It rocks the foundation from the inside out. To prevent it, leadership must start with setting the stage properly. Before you ever issue a correction, you must begin with praise and honest appreciation.
It's the concept of opening a mind before you ask it to change. But how does this not feel like a manipulative compliment sandwich? Hey, great shirt, your quarterly numbers are abysmal, nice shoes. People see right through that.
They see through it because the praise is generic and immediately negated by the word but. You're a great worker, but the word but retroactively destroys the compliment. The skilled leader uses and. You have an incredible eye for detail, and if we apply that detail to this new reporting structure, we will be unstoppable.
That is a massive linguistic difference.
It aligns the praise with the correction. Furthermore, a leader must give the person a fine reputation to live up to. This is known in psychology as the Pygmalion effect. People will adapt their behavior to meet the expectations set for them.
So if I tell an employee, you are always late, you are disorganized, you are a mess, their brain says, well, I guess I'm a mess, why bother trying?
Exactly. But if you pull aside a struggling employee and say, I have always viewed you as one of the most naturally capable problem solvers on this floor, and I need that capability on this project, you have handed them an identity to protect. They will work late into the night just to ensure they don't disappoint that version of themselves that you believe in.
When mistakes inevitably happen, though, the framework dictates that a leader must call attention to those mistakes indirectly. And more importantly, you have to talk about your own mistakes before criticizing theirs.
This levels the psychological playing field. A dictator stands on a balcony and shouts down at the peasants. A true leader stands in the mud with the team.
I love that visual.
When an employee makes a massive calculation error, you don't call them into your office to berate them. You sit down next to them and say, when I first started in this industry, I made a calculation error that cost the company $50,000. I was terrified. It happens to the best of us. Let's look at this error together and figure out how to build a safeguard.
You remove the shame entirely. By admitting your own fallibility, you preserve their dignity. You make the fault seem easy to correct. It's not a catastrophic failure of their character. It's just a mechanical glitch in the process that you will fix together.
Which brings us to the most debated principle in the leadership section. Asking questions instead of giving direct orders. Fostering autonomy.
Let me stop you right there because I can hear the highly pragmatic, stressed-out managers screaming at their radios right now.
I know.
Asking open-ended questions sounds beautiful in a theoretical, relaxed environment. But in a high-stakes, fast-paced environment like a hospital ER, a kitchen during a dinner rush, a startup 2 days from launch, doesn't a leader just need to bark orders, do this, move that, fix this? Doesn't asking what do you think is the best way to handle this deadline just slow everything down?
It is a critical pushback.
Yeah.
We have to differentiate between an acute physical emergency, like a building is literally on fire, and a high-stress operational challenge. If the building's on fire, yes, yell, run to the exit. But 99% of our professional crises are not burning buildings. They are structural business problems.
They feel like fires, but they are just stressful math.
Right. And if you constantly default to dictator mode, barking direct orders every time stress levels rise, you are prioritizing short-term speed over long-term resilience. Think about the secondary effects. When you dictate every action, you breed resentment. More dangerously, you crush initiative.
They just wait for the next order.
Your team stops thinking critically. They learn helplessness. They just stand around waiting to be told what to do, because if they make a decision on their own, they might get yelled at.
You become the bottleneck for your own company.
But if you lead by asking questions, even in stressful moments, you stimulate their cognitive function.
Yeah.
You foster a sense of ownership. If an employee helps formulate the plan to meet the crazy deadline, they own the plan. It prevents the quiet, passive resistance that direct commands always generate.
Which means the next time something goes wrong, they step up.
So when the next crisis hits, you don't have a team of passive order takers waiting for your instruction. You have a decentralized web of engaged problem solvers. Asking questions is an investment in your team's mental infrastructure. It slows you down today to make you infinitely faster tomorrow.
It builds a culture where the team manages the crisis for you. Okay, this is all incredibly profound, but we've talked about a lot of historical examples so far. Abraham Lincoln, Charles Schwab, a guy selling insurance in the 1930s. It all sounds a bit vintage.
Fair point.
Let's pull this aggressively into the present day. How does an operating system designed in 1936 survive contact with the digital landscape of the 2020s?
It doesn't just survive, it thrives. Because while the medium has changed, the message hasn't. Let's look at the most dominant communication medium of our era, social media. It is arguably the biggest stage for human interaction in history, but it is also the most shallow.
It is a global casino of egos. Just an endless scrolling feed of billions of people desperately waving their invisible "make me feel important" signs, screaming for validation.
So in an environment that noisy, how do you stand out? You don't stand out by shouting louder. You don't stand out by posting flashier content. You stand out by being the one person providing the validation everyone else is begging for.
Instead of the mindless transactional double tap or the generic nice pic comment, you stop, you observe, and you leave a highly specific, thoughtful comment that makes the creator feel seen. Like, the lighting you captured in the background of this shot perfectly frames the subject. Brilliant work.
That takes 30 extra seconds of your day. But to the person receiving it, amidst the sea of bots and trolls, it signals sincere appreciation. It fosters actual connection. Furthermore, you rigorously apply the rule of avoiding criticism. The internet is a machine optimized to generate outrage and arguments.
Oh, I used to fall into this trap constantly. Someone would post a terrible political take on a forum, and I would spend 45 minutes drafting an essay with bullet points, dismantling their argument, absolutely convinced I was doing the world a favor.
And what was the result? Did they ever... Thank you. Did they delete their account in shame?
No, they just attacked my character, I got stressed out, and my blood pressure spiked. It is the ultimate lose-lose scenario.
Engaging in public complaining or criticism online damages your own digital reputation, and it literally never changes a single mind. Applying these principles online is like being the one person at a chaotic, deafeningly loud rock concert who actually takes out their earplugs, turns to the person next to them, and just listens deeply to what they are saying.
It is so incredibly rare, and because it's rare, it is an absolute superpower.
We also see this failure of human engineering in corporate communication. Email and Slack have stripped away all the context of our interactions. They remove our tone of voice, our facial expressions, our body language.
A text-based message is a blank emotional canvas, and human beings tend to project their own anxieties onto that canvas. If you send an email that just says, "You forgot the attachment," you might just be typing quickly between meetings.
But the person receiving it reads it in the voice of a disappointed, angry tyrant. Their amygdala fires up. They think I'm incompetent.
Exactly the dynamic we want to avoid. So in the digital world, we have to consciously inject the warmth back into the cold text. You start with appreciation. Thanks for getting this drafted so quickly.
Yeah.
You avoid harsh, definitive language. If you need a correction, you frame it as a collaborative tweak.
Instead of, this section is wrong and needs to be rewritten, you deploy the Aikido. This looks great as a baseline. Can we tweak this one paragraph to better highlight the Q3 data? You are achieving the exact same operational result. The document gets fixed, but you are preserving the relationship, their pride, and their momentum.
We know this works because the sources provide undeniable proof of massive, real-world transformations across different eras. Let's look at one of those famous examples, Warren Buffett, arguably the greatest investor in modern history.
Buffett is a fascinating case study. We think of him as a purely analytical, quantitative genius, a man who lives in spreadsheets. But early in his career, he was painfully, debilitatingly shy. He was terrified of public speaking and struggled to connect with people. He realized very early on that his technical skill, his ability to analyze a balance sheet would be utterly useless if he couldn't communicate his ideas, build trust with founders, and persuade investors.
His 15% technical skill was maxed out, but his 85% people skill was at zero.
So at age 20, he took a Dale Carnegie course. He forced himself to learn these exact principles. To this day, he doesn't have his college diploma hanging in his office. He has a certificate of completion from that human relations course. He credits the ability to connect with people, to subjugate his own ego and make others feel important, as the key that unlocked doors his raw intellect never could have opened.
Or look at Lee Iacocca in the 1980s. He takes over Chrysler when the company is on the brink of total collapse. It's bleeding money, morale is non-existent, the unions are hostile. Iacocca didn't save the company just by cutting costs or redesigning cars.
He saved it with empathy. He applied these leadership principles on a massive scale. He instituted open-door policies. He practiced sincere appreciation. He took a genuine interest in the line workers. He appealed to their nobler motives, challenging them to rebuild a great American institution. He turned around a failing global corporation by changing the emotional temperature of the organization.
But it's not just billionaires and historical CEOs. The sources highlight everyday transformations. There's the story of a shy university student, let's call him Michael. Intellectually brilliant, but so crippled by social anxiety that it was holding him back from opportunities. He felt invisible.
He felt invisible because he was entirely focused on himself. His internal monologue was trapped in a loop of, what do they think of me? Am I saying the right thing? I hope I don't sound stupid.
He was completely ego-bound, even if it was manifesting as insecurity.
So he started applying these small mechanical habits. He committed to giving one sincere compliment a day. He forced himself to ask people about their interests instead of worrying about his own. He shifted his focus outward. And as he stopped obsessing over his own invisible sign, his anxiety evaporated, his confidence soared, and he naturally became a social nexus on his campus.
Or take Jessica, a mid-level software salesperson. She was stuck in a rut. She had a fantastic product. She knew all the technical details, but she was selling transactionally. She was walking into meetings and spouting off specs, just hoping the math would close the deal.
She was experiencing the friction of the tug-of-war. She changed her entire approach. She stopped pitching. She started listening. She researched her clients before meetings, remembered the names of their kids, asked about their weekend, and dug into their actual operational pain points. Her sales didn't just improve, they doubled within 12 months. Not because the software got an update, but because her human operating system got an update. People started buying her before they ever bought the product.
So we have traversed the psychology of the invisible sign, the neurobiology of criticism and appreciation, the magnetism of genuine curiosity, the aikido of persuasion, and the empathy of leadership. We are at the end of this deep dive, which means it is time for the final challenge. Let's synthesize the absolute core of this journey.
The ultimate truth, radiating from this century-old source material, is profoundly empowering. You do not need a new degree to change your life. You do not need to change your personality, become an extrovert, or learn manipulative psychology tricks. You simply need to make a fundamental disciplined shift in your perspective. You must shift from ego to empathy. You must transition from desperately wanting to be interesting to choosing to be genuinely interested in the human beings around you.
So here is the call to action for you, the listener. We want you to challenge yourself. Do not try to implement all of these rules at once. Your brain will overload. Pick just one principle from everything we unpacked today. Maybe it is committing to offering one highly specific, sincere piece of appreciation to a different person every single day. Maybe it is deciding to truly actively listen to your spouse or your coworker without the Me Too reflex for a whole week. Or maybe it is the absolute hardest one, going an entire week without criticizing, condemning, or complaining about anyone or anything.
Pick one. Practice it relentlessly. Watch the micro expressions on people's faces change when you interact with them. It is the small, consistent, daily acts of recognizing the deep importance of others that builds the unbreakable foundation for real, lasting influence.
Which brings us to a final, lingering thought to carry with you as you step back into the noise of the world. Throughout this entire deep dive, we have talked about the immense power of dropping the ego, of relinquishing the exhausting need to prove how smart, capable, or impressive you are. So I want you to sit with this idea. What if every single interaction you have today isn't a test of your competence, but a test of your humility? What if the smartest, most powerful person in the room is never the one trying to prove they are the smartest? What if the most powerful person is simply the one who knows exactly how to make everyone else feel like the smartest person in the room? Think about that the next time you walk into a meeting. Until next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.